Pat, we're in Wicklow. Whereabouts in Wicklow are we?
Well, this is Glenmalure Valley. Officially, it's the longest glacial valley in the British Isles. I suppose it's mostly a mountain farm, mostly mountain grazing. In total, we have about 1,250 acres of grazing rights. And then we don't have nearly as much enclosed land. The makeup of the land in the valley here is mostly to do with mountain type grazing.
Not the easiest to farm, so Pat?
Not easy to farm.
Okay. And what's your practice, Pat? When do you graze the mountain? When do you graze down the lowland?
Well, what we do, we'd have sheep on the mountain most of the time. We would have a few in, maybe at lambing time, you know, the likes of doubles, we would have put them in the shed for, and they would be out as soon as we could again. So they're out most of the time, out on the vegetation, and they're grazing the mountain as much as we possibly can with them. You would have a good, healthy lamb coming off a natural environment, you know, natural vegetation.
So Pat, the scheme, the areas of natural constraint, it used to be known in a former life as the disadvantaged area payment scheme. Yeah. Will you tell me about it?
Well, that applies to areas that have a natural constraint on them. The more severely mountain type land, then you have more severely handicapped and less severely handicapped. Mountain type land is paid on up to a maximum of 34 hectares.
Okay.
With the more severely handicapped, then that's 30 hectares. And less severely handicapped, that's paid at the same rate.
Pat, what do we mean by constraint, natural constraint?
Trying to farm a difficult terrain, you know, and like for example, it may not be all mountain type land, but even land that's prone to flooding in comparison to trying to farm, you know, good arable land.
Pat, what are the payments in the scheme aiming to do?
It aims for to try and halt the decline of the rural population. You know, small family farms, try and keep rural Ireland alive. You know, try and halt abandonment of hill farms.
Pat, could farming here continue without the CAP number one, but also without the ANC scheme?
No. Couldn't survive without it.
And Pat, would you be hopeful now that the younger generations will continue farming here in this area?
I would be very hopeful. That's one thing I'd be always optimistic about, and I'd be always hopeful to try to keep the young farmers farming, because without the young farmers, rural Ireland will die. That's, you know, there's no two ways about that.
Yes.
And if you don't create the right environment for it, they're not going to do it. And we have to be realistic enough to realise that young farmers, like anybody, they need an income, a viable income. And without CAP, we just couldn't survive. There's no two ways about that.